Welcome back, everyone. This week, we got the one and only Brendan Quinn, friend of the pod now, I would say.
Yeah, that's right. Proudly.
Yeah. I mean, you might be the first returner. I'm not really sure, but I want to keep making that a thing. First and foremost, where are you right now, and how's the golf season going?
I am in Michigan for now. I think I spend most of next week in – let me move it this way to get some better light. I am in Toledo next week for the Solheim Cup, which is like the Women's Ryder Cup. And then 2 weeks after that, I will be in Wisconsin for the Ryder Cup. And then that's it. Back to basketball. Back probably where I belong. I'm still surprised some of these country clubs and stuff open the door and let my scraggly ass come walking in there. But yeah, it's been a cool summer. Some really cool places, cool stories, and it's not much of an off season anymore, but that's all good.
No, you've been nonstop. Like, you liking that, or it's just kind of like see where it goes?
Yeah, I get stir crazy typically. So I like traveling. I like going to new places. Golf does like kind of lend itself to some of the writing I like to do. So it's there's a lot of smarter people who know far more than I do about golf. So there's a degree of humility, which is probably really healthy. But no, it's fun.
Yeah, but nobody else.
And you're in Indy now, right?
Yeah.
You're back.
Yep. I'm in Indy here for good now. So this is home base. I gotta change my setup. I think the guys at Field of 68, they don't like my deer head, but otherwise, this is where I'm at now.
Did you catch that yourself?
I certainly did not. In fact, those were found on the ground. I think those were shed. And then my girlfriend's dad, put them on that metal head, and apparently she liked it enough to put it on the wall. It wasn't my choice, to put it that way.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, at this day and age, you got to have like the full-blown Zoom background. You got to get the frame jersey was a nice touch. It was a bit of a flex.
I'm going to flex again. I mean, it's sitting over here right next to me. I just got to set up my home office now. And I've only been living in this house with my girlfriend for a little bit, so I'm not fully set up. So don't worry, people. I'll be flexing again.
Yeah, it's just make sure they know. In case you don't know, now you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the jersey behind you.
Exactly. We got I could talk to you about golf all the time. This is not a golf podcast, even though unfortunately it's not. Maybe I should add some of that into it. Just have you on for like the golf part.
Love it.
But we just had, as the beginning of us recording this, we'll get into some Michigan basketball, but Emoni Bates just committed to Memphis. Quick thoughts, quick procedures. Apparently he was supposed to commit Friday, and now it's happening now. Like, what's going on?
I would say this week of him actually finalizing his commitment to Memphis, which has been pretty well known for a while now. But I would say the handling of this week perfectly summed up most of the year, most of his recruitment in general, most of kind of just the general I don't know, chaos isn't the right word because that's probably far too exaggerated, but just the when you least expect it, something happens. And that's kind of just always been the deal here for a while. No one saw the Michigan State thing coming. No one saw the timing of the Michigan State decommitment coming. All along, when I reported out the profile piece that I did on him in the middle of the year, which I don't know if you would have seen that. You were probably deep in the weeds and playing ball overseas, but kind of did a big story on everything around Amani. So the creation of this school in Ypsilanti and his father and things like that. So the story wasn't about him in particular as much as everything else. And what I kind of found in doing that was nobody connected to that situation thought there was a chance in hell of him playing college basketball, period. Michigan State or not. Nobody thought it was a plausible scenario. Name, image, and likeness have dramatically changed things. That in conjunction, I think, with something that people might not talk enough about is the G League doesn't want kids for 2 years.
Yeah.
Like that. I think for a long time, the Bates camp kind of thought, he'd play another year, get what would be a record offer from the G League, go play 1 year there, and then to the league, right? Well, now name, image, and likeness is in effect, so you can make significant money. But also, if he went to the G League now, him playing 2 years in the G League, like that's not good for the G League. They don't want that. They want you to go to college because it's a free minor league system in some cases, not everybody, but they don't want guys going and playing 2-3 years in the G League. It doesn't make sense for them. They'd rather get you for 1 year. They evaluate you the way they want to. They pay you this, and then you go into kind of the beast, right? So I think those two things in conjunction, that if they would have had an offer for a $1.5 million from the G League to play this year, he wouldn't be going to Memphis.
Yeah.
Right? My understanding is the offer was somewhere in the range of probably like $500K, which is basically on par with what the biggest names are getting. So I think those two things in combination, we're going to get a year or two, maybe. I wouldn't think so. I would think he would go to the G League after a year at Memphis. I still want to see him play at Memphis, frankly. You know what I mean? Like anyone that just like thinks that this is now just booked, he'll definitely be on the court in November. Nothing else will change. There will be no curveballs. I mean, then you just haven't been paying attention. I always said that I would believe Amani would play college basketball when I was physically at a game watching him play college basketball. So I guess I better get credentialed for wherever the hell Memphis is opening next year so I can eat that crow.
Yeah, exactly. What because I'm foreign to what happened with him in Michigan State and everything, but that was said to be devastating for him and Izzo. And I want to get into some Izzo stuff, him versus Howard and the transfer portal. But what happened with the commitment and decommitment, and like did something fall apart, or was it just because their camp, like you said, things were changing day to day?
Yeah. So I mean, the original commitment, if you remember, they announced on ESPN kind of out of the blue one afternoon in the summer. When the hell would that have been? I guess would that have just been last summer? Yeah, that's it. Yes. Izzo was alerted within 24 hours of the commitment. Most of the staff did not know it was coming. Most people at Michigan State had no idea it was coming. So it was kind of out of the blue. It not so coincidentally coincided with them announcing the creation of the school that EJ Bates, Amani's father, created, called Ipsy Prep. So they announced that the school was being created, and they announced that he was committing to Michigan State on live television. Nobody even then really thought that he was going to actually play at Michigan State. No one thought he was going to play college basketball, period. And that includes people at Michigan State. It put him in a weird spot, kind of, because they were also having to recruit with him committed to the class, knowing that there was probably very little chance that he was actually going to play there. So finally the decommitment comes, and it was, I think, to go maybe to market a little bit. I don't know what it was. You know what I mean? He would have been a terrible fit at Michigan State. It never, I don't see it working. The coaching that he's never had kind of coaching like Izzo. I mean, it would have lasted a week. Him and a Tom Izzo practice would have lasted a week. I'm convinced of that. So the decommitment, it kind of freed him up to go find a new place. Was Memphis in play all along? I don't know. But yeah, also, this needs to be very clear. Like him continuing to name Michigan State as a possible that was not happening at all. And frankly, I thought it wasn't particularly cool that they were continuing to list Michigan State when everyone knew that was not going to happen. Because now, for people that might not pay attention, they think, oh, he decommitted and now Michigan State lost this kid. Like, that's not really the case. You know what I mean? Like, when he announced it for Memphis right now, there was not like a loud sigh up at Breslin, but then what? he's going to Memphis. Like that's just not. It's just not reality. So I don't know if they thought that they were doing Michigan State a favor by continuing to announce them by giving them publicity, or maybe if there was still a 5% chance he changed his mind, but like that was not going to happen. So I don't know, man. It's such a bizarre situation, and the scene at Memphis. I have to get. Yeah, I already mentioned it to my editor. Like, set me up in a B&B, an Airbnb, and send me down for the season. I mean, that is going to be an incredible scene. You got Duren, you got Emoni Bates, you got Larry Brown, you got Penny, you got like Bonzi Wells in the mix. Rasheed Wallace is down there. They've got a returning roster, like with some dudes. Landers Nolly's there. Like they've got guys. So, man, that is going to be like must-see TV. Just an incredible show. I don't remember when Amazon did that Michigan football doc.
Yeah,
they need to do that. Everyone needs to get down to
I
Memphis.
feel like they would accept. I feel like Memphis is a team.
Mm-hmm.
Penny's a guy, like that would be an easy one for me.
Yeah.
You can never do it at Duke because obviously Coach K is who he is and more buttoned up. But like, why wouldn't you do it at Penny? Like, I feel like Penny is the type of guy Juwan's similar. Like, just ask.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
You bringing up him and Michigan State and like tagging along schools, and I was just talking to one of my buddies about a top 50 football recruit in the state. He's got Alabama, USC, Florida, like all these schools on his list, and then he puts IU in his top 5. And it's like, what are you doing, kid? Like, just leave him alone. Like, don't do that to people. Why are you like? You're not cool. Like, people aren't gonna love you more. Just leave it alone.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really thinking about it, and like, I mean, it's cool to see Indiana football get elevated just to have their name amongst those schools. But you're also like, you're playing with people's emotions, man. Like there are lunatic fans that are not just ready for the heartbreak that you're about to just slam them with, because the delusion that takes place is always crazy. There was a kid earlier this year. I think it was a dude who transferred to Indiana, actually, from Pitt. What the hell was his name? I'm blanking on his name. I don't know. He's a big scorer from Pitt. He just transferred to Indiana. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. But he listed 5 schools. It was high majors and St. Joe's, my alma mater. And like in my group text, a couple of guys were like, "Whoa, check out this dude." He's just mentioned St. Joe's. I'm like, I don't know anything about this kid, but I'm looking at this list. I can tell you right now, he's not going to St. Joe's. It's not happening. So yeah, man, people take the bait every time. You feel bad.
Every single time. Every single time. I mean, hanging on. I mean, I'm glad. Well, we're still not past the days. I mean, people are still like chirping at recruits on Twitter and stuff. It's like that stuff.
Oh yeah,
it's a joke. But
did anyone chirp at you during what was your final list of schools?
Man, I had the weirdest recruitment. I had who I thought like a bunch of Big Ten schools, like a few Big Ten schools and Notre Dame were going to offer. And then we had one bad tournament and everyone just went crickets. I didn't hear from any of them. How
late was it?
It was right before senior year. It was the last tournament in Vegas, last AAU tournament in Vegas, like in end of July, whatever it is, or beginning of August. And that was it. And I was like, well, I hope all the kids pass in Michigan for my scholarship offer. It was like Clay Thompson and Kyle Kirk, some other kids. And I'm like, yeah, they're not going to go to Michigan. So it's probably going to happen. But it was that or Harvard, basically. I mean, I even tried to commit to Colorado because all these schools are dropping off. And I called Colorado and Jeff Bezdelik. And I was like, I want to commit. And he was like, we can't accept your commitment. Like, you don't want to go here. You want to go to Michigan. And I remember somewhere on the highway crying with my parents. I was in the back seat. Like, they don't want me. And they were right. I didn't want to go to Colorado. It was not where I wanted to go. But I was like, I thought it was my only chance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you wonder how different things would be if you had gone to Harvard?
Yeah, it would have been. I think it would have been a lot different. I think my overseas career would have been different. I think. Yeah, I think I would have played totally different there. So it would have been.
Right.
No, I sat there for a while, a few years post college, and fantasized about what ifs, what that stuff. But then I've luckily given that up. I don't sit there at night and think about it. But
would Tommy have already been there?
Yeah, so he was the one. He was the one
He was
recruiting me. I mean,
recruiting you? Interesting.
he was like I would have been like their biggest recruit, which is hilarious. But he was going hard, hard at me, and so it felt good. And then we played them 1 or 2 years later, and I think I had my career high that game, and I was like, that felt good too.
Man, good stuff.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't wish
Good
recruitment on anybody. It's the oddest, weirdest times. Like you see all these guys, like Emoni Bates' dad, and people are like, all these handlers are, doing it wrong, blah, blah. And it's like there's no playbook. Nobody tells these kids how to do it. Everyone's just on their own. Even if people are giving advice, you're just on your own.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and you can see it's always interesting, like when you get getting to know people kind of early in the process and then seeing that kind of the roller coaster that goes through it. And you can see the eyes get big and they think of all the possibilities, and then things get real and they realize the realities of, the game a lot and just how things can come and go. Like this past year for Amani's not been easy. And it's easy to forget that at the center of this is like this 17-year-old kid who's been commodified since he was 12. How many people have made money on Emoni Bates YouTube clips, you know what I mean, who have no ties to the family at all. So like when people wanted to like criticize him for, the creation of the school and, how the AAU program was handled, all that, like the central theme of the story I wrote was control. This dad who had no idea, didn't sign up for this. He didn't realize, he didn't go out to raise a prodigy. He was not Earl Woods, right? In that way. And suddenly he becomes this thing, and he ends up trying to spend his high school career keeping his hands around this whole situation, which was impossible all along. And I mean, were there missteps along the way? No doubt. But like, I don't know. I don't know how many people would be able to handle what, they just have been trying to navigate.
No, it's only after the fact that you go, oh, that was wrong. Like you don't know
Exactly.
what's right in the moment, but you can, it's easy to criticize after. So having a kid and doing that as a parent, like I've calmed down on criticizing. Now there's definitely some outliers where you're like, all right, dude, shut the hell up. Like you need to stop doing what you're doing. But yeah, it's just a tough spot, regardless. I want to move on. We talked, you mentioned you wanted to talk about some NIL stuff. And I had Hunter on the podcast, and he said, and you alluded to this with Amani and going to Memphis, that, Hunter said that, it made it easy for him to return to Michigan because of that stuff, name, image, and likeness. You can make money off of it now. And it seems like that's a huge win for college basketball. All the college fans want to talk about how they don't like it and blah, 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 amateurism, all that just idiocracy. I truly believe is dumb. And that you got guys literally coming, Amani going to college, you got your growing talent pool, you got guys coming back because of it, is exactly what you want. So, what have you seen from that? And have you seen anything from, from that perspective in terms of Hunter or just, in general in college basketball?
Yeah, I think Amani's case is so unique just because of his age, right? And in any other world, he's likely going, right? This isn't really a road for him, but Hunter, I feel like, is like the perfect case study in the difference that this is going to make in terms of, people like us who are opponents of college basketball, want to see the game healthy, want to see it be not only good for the schools and the fans, but also the guys who are producing streams of money, right? So for this to become a more viable option is awesome. And Hunter being a great example of that, where, maybe he just jumps just for the sake of jumping, like that's what, especially with the other dumbass rules in place about not being able to return if you go undrafted and things like that. Like no one should be taking unnecessary risk, right? So this does make it a safer space to not expose yourself, right? And not make a decision that you're going to regret a week later because you got bad advice or you got bad information from one team that maybe plays a little fast and loose saying, yeah, we'll take you at 45. You know what I mean? Like that shit happens all the time. So, eliminating, and like that rule still needs to be changed or somehow that if you go undrafted, it's still ridiculous that you can't, that this now just eliminates your your college playing days. It just doesn't make any sense. What was it? The pitcher from Vanderbilt got drafted, couldn't come to an agreement on a contract with his Major League Baseball team, and now is just returning to Vanderbilt. Like, how the hell is that allowed in baseball and not in basketball? I mean, we both have pretty good guesses of why, why that is the case. But so I think that the doors that are going to be open from this, but I was talking to some people at Michigan right when Hunter made the decision, and I was like, the wildly interesting thing about this is we have no idea what this is worth. Like, could he make 5,000? Could he make 15,000? Could he make 50? Could he make 100? Like, no idea, right? I mean, it's totally uncharted waters, and it's, if we feel that way, imagine being the kids.
No, completely. I mean, it's completely exciting for all of them. I mean, you even got I think during the tournament, there was an article written about followers, what players have the most followers. I think Adrian Nunez had top 10 the entire NCAA tournament, wasn't even playing. So guys like that can bank. But, I still have question marks, and maybe there's things in the works, or there's already deals been made with Hunter, but, there's a kid out of Columbus who got $80,000 truck from this, he's a recruit, $80,000 truck for doing some commercials or posts or whatever for this dealership in Columbus. Where is that going to come from with the Michigan alum? They're rich, wealthy, vast alum of Michigan. Why isn't there already something going on with Hunter, or his face is on something, or doing some type of deal? Maybe there is. Maybe I haven't seen it, but I don't know. I just haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to see in the next year probably more and more middlemen, for lack of a better term, get involved. You're going to see companies start to kind of pop up that end up negotiating these deals and putting athletes in contact with potential advertisers and whatever it may be. Because I get it while some of it's on the school, but at the same time, schools, you're talking about an entire, building out an entire different department to have people handling student athlete NIL deals. I don't know how much that falls on the school. Education wise, what you can and can't do, absolutely, that's on them.
Yeah.
Actually making deals happen, I don't know if you can ask schools to do that. Maybe in a very perfect world, maybe if it's one of those things, if you scrap the NCAA, right, and just rebuild it all over again, that's something that would be in place, but that's obviously not possible. So you're going to end up seeing almost like mini agents, I think, kind of start to facilitate these deals. And, the schools need to probably be open to, making sure that they are getting the okay on timely things and stuff like that. You can't be putting athletes in situations where they're waiting 2 weeks for approval on minor things. Because one of my big questions is, who is the dude from in the Indiana Ohio State game, right? Who dove and hit the pylon with the ball? Remember that?
Yeah.
And people started making T-shirts of of an outline of the play. It didn't have Indiana's logo on it. Didn't have anything. But any asshole in a basement, right, can draw that, slap it on a shirt, sell it, make thousands of dollars, right? I feel like the beauty of the NIL rule is let the player make that T-shirt, right? He puts it out there. He puts his Venmo out there, and the guy who actually made the play is now getting paid. You know what I mean? So, but part of that's going to be on the school, making sure that, they get the okay, that blah, blah, blah. I assume that's something that's okay. I don't know why it wouldn't be, but I don't know. There's going to be all kinds of interesting stuff that I think just pops up. The football season is going to, I think, like usual, pave the way for what we end up seeing in basketball.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And then one of the big things with Michigan now that Hunter, viewed his issues with was the use of the block M. And I read somewhere that, that's licensed through IMG, and it takes that's a whole issue for Michigan to really let it out. They obviously do it. They do it with vendors and apparel companies. Like it happens. That's not, IMG or Michigan owned. So like that does happen. How much time that takes, I don't know. Have you heard anything about that and their slow-footedness on it, and being able to keep up with other schools, other bigger schools, in terms of letting the use of their images be used by the players?
Yeah, I don't like what other schools have allowed it.
Honestly, I don't know. I know that Hunter said like they're schools are allowing it. I don't know whether
I haven't seen other schools that have allowed it, because like I feel like this is a really tricky area where it's easy to say, yeah, let them use it, but that's kind of it's
very tricky. Yeah,
it's a bit of a free, you're allowing for a bit of a free for all, and like that is the university's property, and there are agreements in place with other entities that I don't think that you can just say, yeah, no, everyone have it. Like I think like coaches can't just use the Michigan logo, like right. I remember that remember that like milk commercial that Harbaugh was in or whatever, like, and he had like a blue polo shirt on, right? And he wasn't wearing his Bo Schembechler hat. Like there was no M in it. That's purposeful, right? Like you think of like the old coaching videos, the instructional videos, like it would always be like the coach in like the blank polo, right? Or like the faded out logo on the side. Like this is just the way the world works in terms of trademarks. If you're a professional athlete, like you don't get to wear, like LeBron can't wear his Lakers jersey in a like Nike ad. All right, maybe he can because it's a Nike jersey, but like you get my point. Like you've seen those ads where, purposefully the player's position that you don't see any logos on it, and it's all trademarked. So I just don't know how. Like I think the MDen thing was cool, and you're going to see more of that with the players having the jerseys, like the football team are getting a portion of jersey sales and stuff like that.
Are they doing it with names and the M and all of it, like legit jerseys?
Yeah, I mean, I think the official jerseys, they're going to be getting a cut. However, that's playing out. I assume you'll see that in basketball too. But that's a slippery slope, and. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you one thing that's for damn sure. It's like there's no way Michigan's going to be like, yeah, use it and we'll figure things out down the line. That's not happening. That's not happening. So I don't know how much of it is just like things that aren't really plausible versus, to use your word, like slow-footedness, because I don't think they're looking to get there. So I don't think it's going to be they're slow-footed anything. I think this is just going to be the way it is.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was apparel and jersey stuff, and I don't know why, pump out some basketball jerseys right now, like get it going, get some hype going. People will be, obviously Michigan fans will be dying to be first in line for that stuff. That stuff can sell out almost. And I think a lot of what Hunter was saying was apparel stuff. Yeah, you go into a commercial, it's very different. Like there's too many things to jump through where you got to connect a car dealership and their law team and like with Michigan's and blah, blah, blah. I get that. It's the scare that, they'll right now what they said to Hunter was, that's it. We're not like, you can't use the M.
All right.
Not even like we're working on it. We're going to do some deals. He didn't mention anything about a jersey. I imagine they're going to do something with that. I don't know. Obviously they came to agreement with football players. They got to do something with basketball players, but it was the sort of what seemed like lack of communication or willingness to work towards something. And like you said, hey, that's Michigan. That's a lot of entities. Like it's not slow-footedness. They're not even going to do it. So that might be the case. And who knows? Everything will play out as it will, and we'll be able to evaluate later. But yeah, I just heard a lot of unhappy people, and I don't know how this is going to go. I know that they can't like negotiate deals. Hunter can't come in and do a Nike deal with Michigan on the contract. Now, what can you advise the kids?
Yeah, that's stuff. And like, that's another thing. I have no idea how that's going to play out. Like, what if a kid, what if Adidas wants to sign, a Michigan basketball player?
Yeah.
To do stuff. I don't know how that works.
I don't know. I think there's
I don't pretend to have any idea either.
Yeah. Because I doubt those are even anywhere close to there's no wordage for that in the contracts, current contracts. Now I think,
Right.
Nike can go and threaten Michigan if somebody has an Adidas player, be like, we'll do this. But like, I can't imagine there's any outright language there. But, eventually they're going to have to make, schools will renegotiate these contracts on behalf of their players for that stuff. I don't know. It's going to get real messy, but it's just a must at this point.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, willingness to get creative. And I think that's what probably most players are asking for and hoping for, is just that general kind of, don't look to be saying no. Look to be, and that's, maybe that's probably where Michigan and maybe a lot of other, more traditional places can probably be, looking to be more proactive at the same time, like, there's also like every athletic department is built with people who have jobs, like where is this other, where
Yeah.
is this entire other department coming from to handle this stuff is tough because, and it's not only basketball and football. Like, I was at the USAM at Oakmont, and a kid from Michigan State wins the US Amateur. Like, that's a big deal in golf. It's a big, big deal. And, like in my world, like he should be able to come up and can he sign with Callaway? Can he sign with whatever and use his own equipment next year while he's playing? Can he go work at do clinics at courses and be making money? Like, if you're the US Amateur champion, you say, I'm going to go set up at this country club for the day and I'm giving clinics and it's $500 for, 2 hours to show up. You would get a lot of people showing up, forking over $500. Like, where does all that stuff fall in line? I don't know, because at the same time, Michigan State was quick to put his face on a billboard throughout the state, congratulating him for Michigan State golf. It was his face with the Michigan State logo. What if he wants to put up his own billboard,
Yeah, it's totally different subject. And you don't know where that kid's going to go. I mean, he might flame out in Big Ten golf. Like, that was his opportunity to capture some money.
Yeah, for every Bryson DeChambeau who, wins the AM and then goes on and has an amazing career, there are the guys that win the AM and you never hear from them ever again.
Yeah, it's just something that you don't want to get caught behind, especially with the big schools. And I don't know. I mean, I hesitate to say it, but I went on a podcast and we were talking about how Howard can't be super happy with, the slow-footedness, quote unquote, that you don't even, recognize, which I understand. But, a guy like that, it's got to be a thing where coaches are now even battling against it. I guess maybe Izzo's more of a, conservative on that end. But a guy like Howard, I feel like, is definitely, player first, wants these things to happen and does not want it to interfere with recruitment. And I think you don't need to get ahead of other schools. We don't want to be lagging behind all that much. And I think that's like one of the biggest fears of Michigan, because let's be honest, recruitment, has been everything for Michigan fans and especially Michigan football. And it's just really picked up in the last 10 years with Michigan basketball. But man, that's a scary game you're playing if there are things you aren't doing. Yeah.
I mean, right now, if I was a Michigan fan, I wouldn't be too worried about basketball recruiting.
Right. I'm not worried about the basketball side of it, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair. It's really hard because, without being there every day, without talking to every athlete about this stuff, like, you just don't know what is, what's reality versus what's being interpreted by athletes. And like, I've heard stories of schools that both of us know having clinics on name, image, and likeness and what they can do, and they're instructional and all this stuff. And, 15% of the student athletes attend it. 10% of, your major programs are actually, the people are there. being
Yeah.
proactive to learn it, right? It's a two-way street. Like the school can only do so much, right? But like if you're going to put the information out and like no one shows up, and then those people are like, hey, the hell's going on? Like, where's my name, image, and likeness money? You're like, well, it doesn't work that way.
Right, yeah.
Like that. So, it's in terms of how people are interpreting how these things are being handled. I take a lot of it, and this isn't like speaking specifically to Hunter, but like I take a lot of it with kind of a grain of salt, like it's okay. That's your experience. What are other people's experiences and things like that,
Right. Yeah, there's always anecdotes for everything.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't always mean everything. And again, wait for the football season to happen, and then even wait for this basketball season to happen. This is everyone's first round of this, and to be reactionary is, I don't know, mainly pointless. You can only just learn from what you can do, basically, or learn from the past a little bit. But yeah, that's a lot of NIL talk. That was good stuff. I want to move on to a couple of topics with you before we get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
One being, you've been on the golf beat, but like, are you paying attention to Michigan basketball right now? What, like, do you get a sense? Have you talked to anybody about the team, the sense of the team, or are you just kind of like, give me a break and I'll get back to it?
No, I mean,
It's understandable.
I've done some preseason stuff and kind of gotten ready on the side. I had a long talk with Juwan 6 weeks ago. So, yeah, I mean, I'm connected enough to know what's happening. I don't, it's not like closing doors and opening doors on what I'm paying attention to. But yeah, I mean, the makeup of this team's really, really, really interesting. I mean, it looks like another top 10 team to me,
Yeah. It seems Hunter said they could go 11 deep, which is insane. I don't think that's even a good thing to do, honestly. But, you got question marks about new guys, transfers, whatever. I'm like, well, they did that. I mean, they did that last year, and they seem fine, and they seem like, you got a veteran point guard and a guy who's coming into the zone and being a leader with Hunter. Like, I don't know. I don't see too many worries. I guess I would say that, I'm not expecting an undefeated start or such a hot start. Like, I would imagine there's going to be more bumps along the road because, last year's success for Michigan, like, yeah, they were good enough for it, but even that's like an anomaly. Like that just doesn't happen. It's very rare, not an anomaly, but it's just, you got to expect some more bumps than that until like, they didn't get too much until like the last 5 games, I feel like. And, they had their issues with some games early on, like, but they always made their runs and won. And, there's always question marks. You can dissect every minute, but I don't know. I'm not really worried for anything. There's like not much to say. It's just like, let it happen.
It's like, I kind of say yes and no on like the hot start thing because they are like, they do have experience. It's one of the, like, the teams that have like those bumps along the way, they're typically the teams that are freshmen and sophomores and everyone's kind of finding that role and blah, blah, blah. Like I look at this team and like, us sitting here, we could scribble out a starting lineup right now, and probably put out a pretty accurate minute distribution. Like it's not that hard to envision roles, right? And you've got an older, experienced backcourt like Devontae Jones and Eli Brooks have combined to play like 200 college basketball games, between the two of them. You've got all the sophomores from last year who got invaluable experience. You have a National Player of the Year candidate who's backed up by, a 4-year player in Brandon. There's the biggest question is how do you kind of feed all those faces, basically, because there's a lot of guys who are very talented. But shit, you look at the schedule, I would be fairly surprised if they don't get to the first week of December, which is obviously an enormous week, undefeated. You go through Buffalo and Prairie View in DC. I think they have Seton Hall in the Gavitt games. There's that tournament out in Vegas, which is like, I think they open with UNLV and then they play Wichita or Arizona. If I'm Michigan, I'm not particularly, you're the favorite to win that. then they, I'm sure they'll have another bye game or two here or there or whatever. And yeah, I think they're going to be like a top 3 team in the country when they get to that first week of December and they play at Carolina and Kentucky at home.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. Then
Am I crazy? I don't think that's that
no,
crazy.
You're not
though.
crazy. Now, I was conflating because last year that's such a shortened non-conference schedule that I was thinking when I was speaking like a lot, the beginning of the Big Ten conference games. But what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And also, that's still hard. Like, everything's on paper. Doubt. That's still hard. My
right, you can shit the bed in Vegas one night and lose to Arizona, of course.
Right. I mean, I don't know. You have it's college kids. You got 25 turnovers and 100 misses. I don't know, 8 free throws. Like, I don't know. It was crazy stuff. But like last year, it was so many crazy games. I think the team was so good and so talented. But so many games where they had to be bailed out by one guy. And, what it was Mike Smith who showed up, had his Columbia days come back and flashbacks. Isaiah had to carry him for a little bit, Hunter in a few games. That's not something you always want to rely on. And that's tough to do all the time, especially you got young kids coming in, filling those roles in the wings. So I don't know. Just don't expect the same thing is what I want to tell fans. Not you, but like fans. Don't expect one guy to save the day every game. They're going to be sound offensively and defensively, but the way it's set up, the whole thing is what I want to say about is the Michigan offense. And Juwan's is free flowing, and it's a lot of motion, like basic sets, and then it's kind of on your own. So that sets up for a interesting start about who's doing what when, and it took Michigan all year to figure it out. Last year, they were just talented enough to save a lot of games. So it sets them up for some learning to do. Where Beeline, it was like day one, like you didn't have to step on the court for him to be like, Stuart, you are doing this year. I'm like, dude, like let me like show myself a little bit. I've been working on stuff in the summer. It's like, no, I know who you are. Like, this is it. Which you can have success both ways, but it's very open. So I think in that sense, like it's going to take some time for them to get used to each other because you can only practice so much and know what other guys are doing.
Yeah, and there's, especially in those first few weeks, when we're going to be throwing out, big takes based on 1, 2, 3 games, whatever.
Yeah,
but
blew out
you just think about how much better Mike Smith was in ball screens at the end of the year versus the first couple of weeks. I mean, it's night and day. If you watched the first game versus NCAA tournament games, it's a different player because it's just growing into that role and getting a feel for playing that way, getting a feel like, you can speak to this far more than I can, but when you're coming out of those ball screens, just having the familiarity with your teammates of guys' tendencies and how they move and all of these things and just getting that kind of yin and yang going, that takes time. So one of my, people that I've talked to in the preseason has been like, you watch Devontae, you kind of see various versions of him at Coastal. Can he kind of be that guy who is really head on a swivel, making good decisions out of those ball screens and keeping that kind of offensive continuity that everyone's kind of really grown very comfortable with watching under Juwan, right? Going from Xavier to Mike Smith. Like it looks a lot easier than it is because of those two guys and what they did. Can Devontae step in and replicate those things? Because I didn't think Mike Smith was going to. When I was talking last year, I'm like, this dude from Columbia, he's jacking shots all over the place. Like he's not going to be, and he's the size of a 13-year-old. Like this is not going to work. And I couldn't have been more wrong. So I'm like all in. I'm like Devontae Jones. If the staff says that he can do it, then he can do it. So, but they are really high on his ability to as a willing passer, and as someone who kind of wants to be that that conductor type guy in the backcourt.
Yeah, and he's
a better defender than Mike.
Yeah, you hit the nail or hit the head on the nail with role, and like talent is a must, but you get a guy like Mike who comes in he has the talent. He can shoot it 19 times if you really want him to. And he gets in there, and it's the first few weeks, and there's so much talent around him that he's running a ball screen. He's like, I don't know what to do because I can't shoot it because it's probably not the right play because there's so much talent. I want to fit in. I don't know where to go with it. Like, it's overwhelming. It's not that he's not good enough. It's that you have to get comfortable in that role, and that takes time. And luckily, they had the guys around them to keep winning without that, and he, developed into that role. But it's far less talent and far more comfort and the mental side of everything. And
right.
it just depends on who the player is. Like, Devontae could be more like Sean D and step in and be like, I got this. Like, this is mine. This is what I do. I know nothing else. Or he could be a little more cerebral like Mike. You just don't know what's going to happen until they step on that court and get tested. You can come out and blow out Toledo and like, fine, cool. Like, he can get 8 assists and that mean nothing. And, until they get tested, it'll be interesting to see. But,
I mean, I will say, especially like those early tests, like you talk about getting bailed out, like end of the day, those games where, the threes aren't falling or whatever, the inevitable games of November, right, that everyone has seen, like, well, you do have maybe the best center in the country who's going to just get buckets, so you do have that bailout guy because, who were the teams that defended Hunter well last year? It's all the teams in the back half of the schedule. We played him for a second time and all of his tendencies and stuff like that. Well, these teams that he's going to be playing now in November of next year will not have seen him. They're going to try to, obviously attack the tendencies from last year, but considering what he's probably doing this offseason, he's going to be a much more evolved player. He's going to dominate, I would think, early on. But for me, like one more, like an overarching thought, I do feel like Eli coming back is probably the most overlooked, undervalued, like roster move in the Big Ten this offseason. Like nobody talks about it. Nobody seems to really highlight it or care about it. But like he is such an enormous luxury item to have of just the continuity, the smarts, the on-court coaching, just everything that he brings in terms of like a college team being good, those experienced teams that we see make Final Fours, win national championships. Like they've got dudes like Eli Brooks on their team.
Every time. It is, the Big Ten coaches were not happy when they read that he was coming back. I talk about this all the time in basketball, especially on the defensive end. All it takes is one guy making a mistake, and that's it. You're screwed. Especially with, 30-second shot clock, long plays, long possessions, like one guy. And if you can eliminate – Eli doesn't really make mistakes. He's not making mistakes. He's not screwing up. And you take away those chances of those mistakes happening, and, you don't have to put some younger guy in there or some little more inexperienced guy in that position. Yeah, it makes a world of difference that you'll never be able to quantify whatsoever. And you'll be like, oh, it feels like Eli, I feel like it's doing some good stuff, but you got to like really break down film, like a full game film in order to appreciate what he's doing. And I will say one thing, it is the most frustrating thing in the world to be in that position. It's like, be like, hey, Stuart, what do you do best? I don't make mistakes. Like, okay, that's not basketball, buddy. Like, you're not good. I'm like, no, it's very important. I'm telling you, please listen to me. But it's awesome. It is.
You need to have Eli on the show, and you guys talk about this. That I would like to listen to that.
I'm trying, man. I want to get him on real bad because we're in very similar spots. He's a better scorer than me. But yeah, it's very similar positions in terms of like role and responsibility and the defensive end. And yeah, so it's something.
But he's such an interesting guy. He's got like just his disposition, everything about him is just, he's just older. He's just an older guy. And he came back for the right reasons, like that he didn't get to have like the social scene of college last year and like those things that like bothered him, like not being able to play in front of his friends and not being able to see non-athlete people on campus, right? Yeah. Like things like that. Like he wants to, from my understanding, he wants to come back like for the more immersive college experience. And that's awesome that, that the NCAA gave, kids like that a chance to be able to do it, So I just wanted to slip that in because all we do is shit on the NCAA, but they got that one right. So
no, they did. You know what? My jaded self, I will say it's like one of those things they give concessions to, so they don't have to give the real concessions. It was like, all right, you can have cream cheese in your bagel now, and they go, "We're a hero. Here's your cream cheese on your bagel." You know what I'm saying? Like, but they did. That it was the right thing to do. So that was nice to see. They didn't really take on it.
I remember being asked at the end of last year, like, if you could get Mike Smith back for a year, Shawnee or Eli, if you get one of the potential super seniors back for the COVID year, I'm like, without question, it's Eli. Yeah. Without question. And that's who they got back. So man.
You can find guys who want to score or run the pick and roll, but like finding guys who 40 minutes want to do what Eli does, like that's not an easy find.
Right.
All right. One last thing before we get out of here. I read an article from Andrew Kahn on MLive, and it was talking about the transfer portal and Juwan stepping in, very comfortable with it. And Andrew kind of broke down why Juwan would be more comfortable with it coming from NBA and free agency and the high turnover that they always have, and how Izzo has been, not quite as friendly towards it, but has had to tap into it. Like, have you seen, I think it's easy to break down why Juwan is so friendly with it, but like, this is kind of a turning of the tide a little bit with college coaches, where Coach K has already come in and said, he quit on it. He's already quit on it. He's done with it. Izzo battled against it. I know Beeline didn't like it at all. Transfers in general. Are you going to see someone like Izzo? I feel like he'll stay in it because he's stubborn and want to figure it out. But like, are we coming to the end of his wits with college basketball?
I don't know if I'd go that far. Say what you will about Tom Izzo.
Now that he's going to retire.
Tom Izzo has managed to adapt in basketball, like, for being kind of an old stodgy guy, and the reputation that he has. Like, they've continued to adapt all the way along the way. And if there's talent available, he's going to go get it. He might bitch and moan and whine and complain about the transfer portal, but he's not complaining about getting players. He's complaining about what college basketball has become. But like anyone else, like, he's not just going to be like, make a statement and say, I'm not going to take players from the portal. Like, there's no way. He's already done it. He got the kid from Northeastern this year. And this is what I love about the college coaches. And this is like family members of mine included, who are like, they make these sweeping statements about what's best for the game. But then when they have to do it, for their own survival, he's going to go sign Tyson Walker. He'll say, what is the transfer portal going to do to these poor mid-majors? They're going to develop these guys, and then the big programs are going to come around and take these players, and now the program and that coach is just, left to fend for themselves. Oh, and then what does he do? He goes and takes, Tyson Walker does not end up at Northeastern. Like, that's like a top 3 player that Bill Cohen will ever coach at Northeastern was Tyson Walker. And he just picked up and left for Michigan State instead of going and taking Northeastern to next year's NCAA tournament, right? Like, every coach is survival first, and they want to win. So, Izzo will complain about it, but it's more of the kind of holistic approach of what he thinks college basketball should be, and that it's not 1985 anymore. So he'll stamp his feet and make a ruckus, but he's going to do what it takes to, if he needs a point guard, he's going to get a point guard. Right.
Right.
And that's like all the way down the line.
Right.
My sister coaches at Penn. I'm wearing my Penn field hockey hat right here. She's the field hockey coach at Penn. Would get, she's a big proponent of USA field hockey and wants USA developmental programs to be better, and gets furious when programs would go and take international kids. Right. She's like, I wish the better programs would have a little bit more willingness to bring in, U.S. girls and develop them so that the U.S. team is more equipped to compete on the national, right? And this is like kind of that's just how she feels about it in this like almost moral way of like, we need to develop, American field hockey. Well, it got down to it, and she realizes that she needs to compete. If she wants to compete for national championships, you have to get international players. So now she brings in international players. It's like, it's everyone's the same. So I don't know. I mean,
the one thing I will say is that I think, Coach K's bringing in all the top talent. He's had talent for a while now and has not won. And I think there's something that when you're, there's something subconscious that can affect you. They're all humans, and you're grumpy about the state of what you have to do and your job, and things are changing. And like, if you're not accepting, that's got to do something to at least most of the college coaches who hate all of this stuff. And if you're like, yeah, okay, I'll go get the guy, but you're still subconsciously grumpy all the time, and then you can't coach them, and you're going to run into walls constantly with your head first.
Yeah, I mean, that's used as opposed to like the coach that isn't even thinking about it and doesn't care.
Right.
Yes, the one coach is certainly using more bandwidth, getting hot and bothered about, the state of things, whereas, maybe someone like Juwan, it just doesn't even cross their mind, right? Because they don't care, and they didn't coach back when this stuff didn't exist. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure – like Martelli and Juwan having conversations about this would be like two aliens, trying to speak in the same language because, Phil feels the way that he does because he's been in college basketball for 85 years. Juwan hasn't, and it just doesn't even really register. So, yeah, I mean, that's probably fair to say that, some guys are going to be more prone to kind of let it bother them, and how does that affect or manifest? I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's certainly led to this change of the guard for sure with all these, and Tom probably has a few years left until he's fed up with it. Boeheim, the second his son coaches his last game, he's out, right? Like, it's definitely sped up kind of the changing of the guard, I feel like. And it's for better or worse, by the way, because, we can talk about these old school coaches and poke holes in them all day. But a lot of these guys were kind of, they were kind of the proponents of college basketball because they were proponents of themselves, of course. But they were the loudest voices, and it's going to be interesting to see like who ends up kind of being the loudest voices in college basketball after this, because there was very much a little club that kind of ran things, and now those guys are gone, and who fills that void?
Yeah, that coaches association is dwindling.
Oh my God, it's insane.
The ear of the NCAA is not what it used to be. So that's gonna be interesting for sure. Yeah, I'm gonna follow that closely. I hope you can get some inside info for me when we get you back on. I want to hear some more of Izzo's.
You want me to just get with Izzo and be like, so the game's passed you by. The transfer portal's going to run you out of here. This is what I'm hearing from my man Stu. Would you care to comment on these reports from his podcast?
Like, who? Novak? Was it Novak? Oh, man. Yeah. All right, Brendan. I appreciate you coming on.
Happy to.
Yeah.